Welcome everybody to Adept Packaging's August Learning Share. Today's topic is single parcel distribution testing for real world results. You have been watching a video that shows some of those real world unfortunate results now. We'll be moving over to our presentation momentarily. For today's presentation, all of our attendees' lines have been placed on mute. If you want to ask a question, you can type your question into the chat box at any time throughout today's presentation. Please be sure to send your questions to Adept Packaging host, and we will read them at the end of the presentation. You may also ask a question at the conclusion of this presentation by taking your line off of mute first. You'll see the polling function is active for this month's presentation, and we'd love to hear your feedback. The poll will run throughout the duration of today's presentation. If you would like us to reach out to you, please be sure to provide your email address in the poll so that we may contact you. We appreciate your responses. Our host for today is David Foster. He's one of our experts on a variety of topics, but today we're focusing on single parcel distribution testing. And at this time, I'll turn it over to David so we can get started.
Thank you, Daniel. Good morning or good afternoon to everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. So as Daniel said, we're going to be talking about single parcel distribution test design for real world results. So during this presentation, we're going to be talking about selecting simulation environments, or more importantly, developing those simulation environments specific for a distribution environment. And as you would expect in today's world, we're going to be focusing a lot on e-commerce environments. So the objective, we hope to provide information to stakeholders that allows design of accurate single parcel distribution simulation tests that ensure reliable results. So if we break that down a little bit, so information that's going to be in the form of guidelines, tips, instructions. Stakeholders, those people within a brand owner that have an interest in ensuring customers are satisfied, and that's obviously one of the main objectives of an organization, is that customer satisfaction. In some organizations, smaller ones don't necessarily have a packaging function, so people directly responsible for that customer satisfaction through delivery might be in a marketing group, they might be in an operations department or somewhere else in the supply chain. And obviously third-party packaging engineers are also part of that stakeholder group, in that they're ensuring that there's customer satisfaction. When we talk about accuracy, we are talking about a correct representation of the environment, and the reliability aspect that comes from ensuring that decisions are able to be made at a high confidence level from the results that are produced from a simulation test. So why do we need to do this? Well, distribution environments are complicated, and they're becoming even more complicated. The process flow that we're looking at towards the top of the screen, this is a real life distribution channel. This is for a product that's sold in the US, but it's filled in Thailand. It's a beverage. And the transportation from Thailand to the US is very, very complicated. There's refrigerated transport, there's sea shipment, there's refrigerated transport to a third-party logistics center, there's frozen storage, and then there's ambient distribution to maybe a DC, and then onwards through single parcel distribution to a consumer. So it's very, very complicated. On top of that, we have sensitive products, more and more sensitive products being distributed via e-commerce, especially over the past few months, where people have been quarantined and in isolation. They're relying on delivery for a lot more of the products that they want and need. So there's more and more beverages, food requiring chilled storage, detergents and other liquids, which have always been a problem in the e-commerce environment, but more and more liquids going through that channel now. We have internationally produced products that have to make their way to the US before they're broken down into single component. And then we have the shipping, own container, and frustration-free packaging requirements through Amazon. The images towards the bottom right of the screen, this is a beverage that I order and receive quite frequently. It's one of my favorite beverages. It's called Limitless. They make a lot of good flavors as ginger and mint and blood orange. It's made in Illinois, and so it doesn't ship tremendously far to where I am in Washington, DC. But this is the condition that I regularly receive the packaging in. It used to be a kind of, it's not really a shipping own container package, but that's what they tried to do, and it was regularly received in a very damaged condition. They've more recently started using an overbox, but very similar problems occur. The can on the right, I regularly receive them in that condition. This particular one was completely empty, actually. It had burst and lost all the content. But importantly, and something that we're going to touch on a bit more in the presentation, is my acceptance of this. I'm still going to order the product. So, you know, maybe this is an indication of tolerances or a tolerance of damaged product being lowered, and maybe an expectation that you are going to receive some sort of damage through an e-commerce environment. So that's an important point when we start talking about success criteria following simulation testing. So a few of you are probably saying, you know, there's already standards that exist for this type of thing, for simulating distribution environment. Well, we're not going to be ignoring those standards. We're actually going to be utilizing them and customizing them for our own specific distribution simulation testing. And I think there's more and more of a need to do that, as we've seen, because of the complicated environments and because of the products that are now being distributed by single parcel. So as an agenda, we're going to be looking at an overview of the standards, who are the bodies that produce these standards. We're going to be talking about a distribution environment and how to find out more about that distribution environment. We'll be looking at some of the more specific standards that are produced from standards bodies, comparing some of those schedules. Then we're going to be looking at creating our own custom schedules, using an example of that with case studies. And then we'll be finishing off with some recommendations. So there are two main bodies within packaging engineering that are relied upon for producing standards, those being ASTM, and the second one is ISTA. So the differences between those bodies, well, ASTM is a larger organization. They don't just concentrate on packaging, obviously. They produce standards in many, many different fields. But their standards are produced by what's called a consensus method, which is a large group of independent experts, independent from the organization, who vote, democratically approve new standards, changes to standards, etc. And it goes through three groups, often task groups, subcommittees, and main committees.